Okay, before this video starts, I just want to say if you haven't played the Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, I'm going to be spoiling parts about Venom, so this is your warning. Don't cry in the comments that I ruined the game for you, because I'm literally telling you right now. So again, second spoiler warning, I'm talking about the game. And a very important surprise that if you don't know about the game or that you don't know of this portion of the game, it's going to ruin it for you, because it was genuinely a shock to myself because I had no idea about it. So please do yourself a favor and click off the video. So to say that Venom is my favorite comic book character of all time, favorite character from comics, anything like that, would be an understatement. I've genuinely seen the Venom movies multiple times. Like, I've sat through them voluntarily, as well as I have a graded comic literally right next to my setup with a pop figure from Venom's original pop figure run in a casing. So just again, I really like Venom, and Insomniac did a pretty good job with him. I will say that I feel like we should have gotten more. I feel like he was very much like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in the sense of his rushedness, and I just didn't really like that part of the story. I wish that he was kind of built more. I did like how they handled him taking the mantle of the main villain of the game away from Craven. I thought everything to do with his gameplay was done perfectly. His design is easily the best Venom design I think we've ever had. I think the only one maybe that rivals it is from the King in Black storyline from the comics. I think that is my favorite Venom design, just because of it's like one of my favorite comic lines ever. So I just really like the design. I think I also really like the design of when Venom bonds to Eddie Brock's son. I think that design is really cool with the chains, but really I think that Insomniac's version of Venom is top tier, and the gameplay form was done really, really well. I think that the introduction to him becoming the bad guy and Harry flipping the switch to be Venom was done perfectly. I think the way that Tony Todd portrayed the symbiote as a villain was done really well, and the way that the symbiote manipulated Harry even a little bit to just really and capitalize on the evilness was done perfectly. Again, I wish he was cooked a little more, but it's okay. I still think that he was done really, really well. So let's talk about the thing that I think every single person who is a fan of Venom wants from Insomniac to do, and that's to make a Venom video game. Now, this video is going to be me talking about why I think we're going to get a Venom game, because I think there's way too much evidence to show that either Venom's going to be the DLC and he's going to be a playable portion, we're going to get a spin-off version like the Miles Morales game, but for Venom, or we're just going to get an entire Venom game based on himself. However, I don't think that it's going to be set in the same city as New York, and I'll get to that in the portion where I think he would do better as just a solo game. But first, let's talk about the game. Let's talk about Marvel Spider-Man 2 and that small 19-second section. It felt like it was done perfectly. His brutality was really good. His finishers were perfect. I loved the charge ability as well as the Venom rage ability. I just think that it was overall done perfectly. The striking felt really good. It felt like you could take damage, but not a lot. And I just think that if I was going to play a brutal, huge, hulkling version of Venom, that would be how I would want to play it, and they did that very well. The only thing that it was lacking for me was I felt like they didn't really use Venom's webs a lot, and that can sound weird because obviously Venom's huge. He's going to just punch people and jump and land on them and things like that, but in Marvel's Midnight Suns, when he teams up with Spider-Man, I love that cutscene because Venom is using more than just his brute size to take on the bad guys, and that's when Venom, to me, is at his best, is when he's trying to outthink his way out of a fight instead of just rooting through it, and I think that that's an important aspect that was kind of missed. But again, this was his start. This was Harry's first experience fully taken over with the symbiote, so I can get it. I also liked that Insomniac removed the flame weakness. I've always disliked that as a symbiote weakness, and I just think it's cool seeing Venom walk through fire and not getting hurt by it. I think that's a dope thing. I am very happy that they established very early on that that was not going to hurt the symbiotes, and really the only thing that hurts them is sound. found, and I think it was done perfectly. Okay, I'm done being like a shell for Insomniac. Let's talk about why I think we're going to get a Venom game. The first and most blaring piece of evidence is the fact that Tony Todd was pretty much on record teasing and saying that him, as well as the two actors for Peter Parker and Miles Morales, the voice actors, they were all working on something that was going to be shown or released next year, aka 2024. Obviously, if they're doing something with all three of them, that has to be either a DLC or a game. And I think that maybe they could do a super quick turnaround like they did with Miles and make this one even quicker because they were working on it at the same time. But I think really they could just do like a 10-hour DLC and make it worth it. And I feel like if you're going to make a 15-hour DLC to 20-hour DLC, you might as well make it its own game. But that's just kind of my own piece to it. I'm pretty sure Miles' actor also confirmed this, even though I could just be misremembering it. But I'm pretty sure he also confirmed that they were working on something together, or at least he was working on something in regards to Spider-Man. The only caveat is that Tony Todd did say that he couldn't confirm what it was, and he didn't say it was a video game. He said he couldn't confirm if it was a movie, TV show, or video game. But the only thing I can think of is that it's going to be a game. I don't see him making an appearance in Across the Spider-Verse's sequel. I don't really see that happening. I could definitely see the two voice actors for Peter and Miles, respectively, making an appearance again, but I think that really Tony Todd is the key player here, and I think that him doing any sort of work in regards to voice acting, at least for right now, is going to be Venom. I think the second thing is just the fact that we got the gameplay itself. I don't know why they would design a whole system around a character just for us not to be able to play as them in the future, whether it's DLC in Spider-Man 3, maybe he's a good guy because of the DLC, or in his own spin-off game. I think that Venom is such a huge force, and Insomniac knows how much fans really, really love the character and love the villain and the anti-hero that he becomes when Venom becomes the Lethal Protector. I think that that's just a super easy way for them to make money. The biggest thing I think is how they would do it, because if you again, spoilers, I don't know why you're still in this video if you haven't played the game, but at the end, the symbiote disintegrates. Now, it's shown that Oscorp has multiple symbiotes because of the Carnage kind of side quest, or the Flame side quest that you do with Yuri as Peter, but I think that there is probably some sort of symbiote trace left at Oscorp from the host cell, which would be Venom. So they also touched on a lot in the DLC. They touched on the hive mind aspect, which I think you're not just going to build that kind of lore and build that super intense lore with the Null kind of spiral as well, and just not do anything with Venom going forward. Obviously, like, Null is a huge villain, not just in Marvel, but in Venom's kind of, I don't want to call it a rogue gallery because he doesn't really have one, but I think that Null is like the penultimate Venom villain, with Carnage being a mixture of him and Peter's villains. And I think that's another thing that's important here, is they are setting up Carnage, and unless they're gonna go the Sony movieverse route, you really can't do Carnage without also doing Venom and Spider-Man teaming up, because Carnage is pretty much what gets them off of hating each other for the first time, is because the enemy of their enemy is their friend. So they need to not bond together, but they need to work together in order to stop Carnage. Especially with Miles too, I think it could be kind of interesting. I think the 3 dynamic would be really cool to see. I just don't know who they're going to make the main Venom host. Obviously, they could really easily introduce Flash Thompson or Eddie Brock. Just be like, oh, hey, he's been working at the Daily Bugle this whole time. Or, hey, this is a classmate that graduated with Peter and Harry, and he's just kind of there. It would feel kind of shoehorned in, because I don't think they're going to put Harry in a coma just for him to wake up in the DLC, but they could. It would just kind of undermine his ending, but I do think Harry's going to come back eventually, and I think he's going to be a good guy, but that's a topic for when they announce that Spider-Man 3 is being worked on. And then the last little piece of evidence that I think is very much evident, and this has to do with his gameplay, so just kind of hear me out here. I saw a video on Twitter that someone had gotten out of the kind of main area that you play as Venom. They kind of glitched their way out of it, and they had fall damage on, and when they took fall damage, they died as Venom, and he had like a fall damage kind of death animation. Obviously, if you play the game with fall damage on, you know what I'm talking about. When Peter or Miles hits the ground, they do like a little turnaround, or they have like a little splat animation. And I think that the fact that they gave that to Venom and even just kind of worked that into his system just kind of shows that they want to do more with him. Also, yes, I think this game would have sold really, really great if it didn't have Venom and if it was just a Craven focused game, but I definitely think that Venom brought more people into this game, and I think that's just kind of a hard thing to argue because of how popular and how much of a fan favorite villain and character Venom is. Now, do I want a DLC? Not really. I'd much rather have like a Miles Morales length game with just put it in San Francisco. And maybe Oscorp has something in San Francisco. Eddie Brock is already in San Francisco. He gets the symbiote. It like trips him out for a little bit, but then it kind of like the movie where he has to kind of find his way with the symbiote, just make it better. Or maybe Eddie was infected with a part of the symbiote during the outbreak in New York, and for some reason it stuck with him because they're perfectly symbiotic with each other. Maybe Eddie doesn't like MJ or Peter or Miles or something like that, and the symbiote's hatred for Miles and Peter bonds with his, and then that's how he becomes Venom. I'm not really too sure. The other very glaring problem with making Venom a bad guy again is the fact that Peter still has the anti-Venom symbiote with him, and he's probably going to have it moving forward, because if you don't know, the anti-Venom kind of symbiote is bonded on a cellular level, so it's really hard to unbond with it. So I think that's going to be his base ability set in Spider-Man 3, but again, that's for a future video. But yeah, I'd much rather have a Venom game, just because I feel like you could do more, you can establish more, you can set up more with not only Carnage but with Null, because they had the Null spirals on the symbiotes. They pulled directly from a lot of the concepts of Venom around the Null period, like with his wings, and they didn't credit the comic book creators, and they should. But I think overall, there's a very high chance we're going to get something with Venom and Tony Todd in the future. Tony Todd killed it. Everybody's loving his portrayal of Venom and loving the gameplay portions. Whether they like the story around Venom is kind of here or there. It's really personal and kind of up to anybody. But I think this is a great step moving forward, and I think they need to do more with it. Anyways, if you have an idea for a Venom game, go ahead and put it in the comment section. I'm a huge Venom fan, so this is just kind of, I'm just throwing out why I think they need to make another game and why I think they will. But if you have any ideas, leave them in the comment section below. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.